Right, so this is part 3 of the Land Rover engine, the donor engine swap. I'm taking the timing belt cover off and I'm going to change the diesel injection pump over to the mechanical one and put the new timing belt on that came off the other engine, which had the pulley, the aftermarket pulley with the guides on it to stop the belt riding off. I can already see the timing belt cover is missing a couple of bolts. I've got plenty of bolts, so hopefully there's not threads snapped off in there. But we'll have a look. I'll rattle the crank pulley off and then see if the remaining bolts will come out. So I've got the puller, and in fact it is just turning by hand to pull the crank pulley off, so it wasn't stuck as I first thought, which is good. Obviously not been off in a little while anyway. There's the waterproof timing belt cover off. As you can see, the gasket's intact, which is nice. The cam belt's not. As you can see, it's stripping, starting to delaminate the belt. Pieces starting to fray off. Who knows when that was last changed. And the bolts are just missing out of the cover by the look of it, which is nice. Good, good. Saves me having to drill and tap new threads into the engine casing there. A fair bit of crud in the bottom of that cam belt casing as well. We'll clean all that out, so that's nothing to worry too much about. So it wants to go over a little way. So on a 300 there's a pin that goes through the diesel pump. This mark on the cam lines up with that little pointer there. And the crank goes with the keyway up. I'm sure there's a little pointer somewhere on here as well. Sometimes these tensioners have a date stamp on them, depending on what kit got used with it. The filth that's sitting in there, bits of shredded cam belt, look at that. What a horrible, horrible mess, all that just sitting. I think she was definitely due. As I say, I'll brake clean all of this. I'll get the diesel pump off. This pulley should just pull off. I think it possibly will with a bit of coaxing. Goes. That's that pulley off. Clean up the crank. I've got a new O-ring oil seal for the front main seal. I'll get some brake cleaner and set a little tray up to catch all the rubbish and blast it all out. I'm a lot happier with how that looks now. That's lovely and clean in there. So I have this very handy tool, an oil seal puller, which has 2 hooks on it, which is great for removing old oil seals. There you go. That's that one out. And just wipe out the oil seal retainer. There it goes in there. Just to make sure it's free from anything horrible. I'll put the new one in with a bit of grease. Looks as if someone's changed that before and damaged the aluminium there. So here's my new oil seal. Just taking a little bit of multi-purpose grease onto it, just putting it round the sealing face where it goes on the crank, and we'll put a little bit just on the outer edge as well, just to help him press home. Right, he's pushed all the way home. So I like to put a little bit of grease on the mating surfaces, not too much. Push that around in there just so he doesn't get stuck on the crank if we have to take him off again for any reason. And a little bit of grease on the seal face. So that's ready to go in. All the way home. I'm just removing the diesel injection pipes off the pump to the injectors. And we'll get them away, and then we'll take a little bracket off the back of the pump that holds it to the side of the engine block. And then there's 3 nuts that hold the pump on through the timing belt cover. It's all quite straightforward stuff on these old 300s. Just move the pipes off. This one obviously has the Bosch electric pump on it, so I will have to take all the wiring harness and that off with it, which is fine. Revert back to using my single wire setup on the Landy, which just goes to the stock solenoid. Right, that's the last nut off. Let's see if we can undo these plugs. One. There's 2. A little oil pressure switch. Right, that should. Oh, there we go. Oh yeah, there's nothing left of the paper gasket, it's all fallen apart. Here's one old fibre wire throttle pump off. I'll swap the gasket off the other engine because it's complete. Not that I take it that deep in water, but you never know. A little paper gasket going on. Has a little tear in it, but it's pretty much there compared to the other one. So here's my mechanical Bosch injection pump. I think it's a V40 from memory. Slots through there. Get some nuts for that and bolt him up. Look at setting the pump timing up and putting the pulley on the pump next. I'm just getting the timing belt ready now. Put the idler and the tensioner back on. We can adjust him up, which is good. This is the pulley that was off the other engine, off the pump. Decided to put him back on this one. It's a vernier pulley in such a sort of fashion. You've got a little bit of adjustment there to get the timing spot on really. There's a pin that locks the pump through, which we'll get in a minute. Leave these 3 little bolts loose, just so that can turn. We'll twist the pump round and put the pin in. So I've got this pin for putting through the injection pump, and lock that up, which is good. Still gives me a little bit of adjustment on the pulley there for setting the timing belt up, which is good. I've put my tensioner and oiler on. I've got the timing belt here. This timing belt, it did come off the other engine. It's brand new. It's done literally, it's not even done 1,000 miles. I'm willing to stick it back on it. It's a wide belt and it was only put on it last year, so I'm quite happy to reuse that belt. It's probably not the best practice too, but in this case I'm okay to use it. Not looking too bad. Marks are all lining up, which is good. And then we need 1/2 inch drive extension in there. Use this bar just to set a bit of tension on it. And we can tighten these 3 10s here. Right, that belt tension's looking alright. I'll try and pull the little pin out if I can. Oh no, it's come out. There we go. The pin's out. Timing's set. Happy with that. Tension's good on the belt. So I've just cleaned the cover out in the pass washer, and I'll offer the cover up. I put a new seal in the front cover as well, so that's looking alright. Right, that's the cover on. I've got the crank pulley ready to go back on. I've just cleaned it out. And again, put a little film of grease around where the seal goes and where it goes onto the crankshaft itself. It aids in pulling it apart and when it has to go back together as well. Clean up some of these fan belt pulleys and we've got to change the alternator. The alternator on this engine didn't work. Then we can put the fan belt on. It's a non-adjustable alternator. It doesn't do any of the belt tensioning like a 200 where it all swivels. So that side of things makes it a bit easier. We have a little sprung tensioner on the front. Through. Thinking that alternator does just, yeah, there she goes. There she goes off with that. Pop that out of the way. Top through. tight. Good. We have an alternator. We have the clip for the wiring harness on the back here, that's looking good. Put the fan belt on next, I suppose. So the 300 has a Serpentine belt, which is a multi-grooved belt. I shall be putting the one off the other engine on again because it was new in the car. Also, I do quite a few trips, Scotland trips I used to do with that 300, and I would hate to be stuck somewhere, especially over something silly like a fan belt going. One-handed at the moment. Okay. Oh, a little job done. I'm just swapping out the thermostat. This was the one that came out of it. Don't know how long that's been in there for. Again, the other engine had a new one in it, so I'm going to put that in this one. So I've just swapped this top for a brass one. I had fun and games getting the old plastic one out. Came out bit by bit, but I despise the plastic one, it's horrible. Always replace those with the brass ones, and at least you know you'll get it undone for bleeding. So that's that one done. I've put this little silicone coolant hose on. I'm gonna take the inlet and turbo off next and swap that for the turbo and inlet, or just the turbo manifold off the other engine. The inlet doesn't really matter, as long as it's clean, that can go back on. And there are two 13s on studs just there and there, so we'll need a ratchet with the extension for those. These ones you just have to loosen. I think the manifold has grooves in it, so you can just lift it up. There we go. The inlet off. Oil feed. I wanted to flush these pipes out anyway because it had the gungy oil in it. What I'll do when it's up and running, I'll get it running for a bit and then I'll drop the oil out of it and put some fresh into it, so we'll use that as a flusher. I might even put some engine flush through it. Let's have a look. This turbo did work fine, so I'll put it on the side in my shed as a good spares one if ever we need it again. Right, the return's off, the feed's off. Oh no, it came off as a nut. Well, that's good for that one. Get rid of that. This is all rusty and horrible. I've got a hole in it, so we'll put the other one off the other engine in because it's in good shape. There we go. It's all tight. This one's coming off as the stud too. Try and give this engine the best chance it can with all my new parts. Okay. Turbo off. This engine was full of all that horrible gunge. So I've just got a drip tray underneath and I'm just brake cleaning straight down the pipe. So I've swilled out my return pipe and my feed pipe. Loads of brake cleaner down them and put the airline down them both, so they're really clean. Everything's looking good to put the new turbo on. Turbo manifold on. Squirt a bit of fresh oil down into the turbo. Pinch him down. Got the washer either side. Look at putting this return on. tight. Oil returner. He's tight. Good. So the feed and the return is back on the turbo. Dipstick can be bolted up now. He's tight. Oh, sort of looking like an engine again. We'll put the inlet back on. Inlet's on and looking good. Starter motor here. Might as well fit him up now before we're much older. Now there's an earth wire that goes on to the stud with the nut. So I'll leave that loose. The other two bolts can be tightened up. Tight. So left him loose for the earth strap. So the valve clearances are 0.20 mil, and that seems to be across all of them, inlets and exhausts. So we've got a spanner, 13 mil, to crack the lock nut off with. We've got this big old screwdriver here. This fits them nicely because it bridges the little flathead top. You're just looking to tighten it until it just becomes difficult to move. Now usually this pulls down the clearance a little bit more when you just nip the lock nut up. A bit loose still actually. There we go, he's pretty good at that. So that's that one done. Over to just check there's nothing. That seems alright. Right, we'll get the rocker cover and stick that back on. So I've still got the bracket to put on the back of the diesel pump. That can go on when the engine's in, because I've got to route the harness. The wiring harness sits behind there. So I've got to make sure that goes back, and then I can bolt the little bracket in afterwards. Other than that, she's ready to go in. the engine's nearly in now. It's a little bit of wiggle and waggle, and I think she's sort of close to going in on its bell housing bolts. It's got to come down a little bit more this side. She started going. She has started going in. Bell housing bolts. The gap there is not bad. It's starting to pull up. I just need to wiggle it a bit further. But yeah, that's not too sad. Not far at all now. I think a bit of a wiggle and possibly turn the crank a little bit, see if it's just the gearbox shaft that's holding it. There she goes, that's better. Yeah, that's a lot better. She's gone in. And you could do with a second pair of hands with these things. Yeah, she's gone all the way home now. I'm going to stick some bell housing bolts in. So I've managed to get a little bit of plumbing work done with the engine today. I have wired her up, routed the wiring harness around and through. It goes all to the places where it needs to. Put me coolant pipes on for the heater matrix. Fuel pipes are in and on. I haven't bled anything through yet. Wiring's all on for the oil. I've just put the radiator and the intercooler in and just putting these cooler pipes on. We'll nip those up now with this adjustable spanner. So yeah, she's sort of nearly at the point where we're ready to see if she'll chirp a tune. Biplane flying over. I still need to put the exhaust on. I've managed to put the power steering pipes onto the pump, so that's done. And the intercooler pipes still need to go on. The turbo pipes on that feeds the pump to pull in more fuel as it boosts, that's all on. Yes, diesel injection pipes are on and I put the bracket back on. Exhaust downpipe's now bolted up. Look at putting some boost pipes onto it next, and then the fan. Put some oil in it, water. So my bottom boost pipes are in, intercooler is in. Put the shield in here and put all my coolant pipes on. Air filter box back together, my air trunking's on. Breather pipes on. Just routed that up there for the time being so I can just monitor bits and pieces. I'm going to put some oil in it next and put some coolant in it. I'm leaving this intercooler pipe off just till it fires up, just in case there happens to be a bit of crap or something in the intercooler. I have checked, it seems okay, and then obviously if it does do something stupid I can shut it down by blocking the air intake. So just to fire it up with, we'll do it like that. I'll get some oil for it and yeah, put some in. I'm putting some 1040 in it. I just ordered a 20 litre drum, so I need to service the Cortina up. This takes 1040 as well, so I'll get through a fair bit of it, so I'll get it in 20 litre drums and grab some more. See if we got any of that on the dipstick yet. Looking at the minimum mark, put a little bit more, and I do intend not to leave this oil in here for too long. and flush it through just to get the rest of the crap that was in the engine out. So I will be putting engine flush through it. For the time being, I'll run it up with this oil. Right, that should be enough now. Fire her up. Yeah, that's looking good on the mark now. Right, put a bit of water in her as well. I haven't put the fan back on yet, still got that to do, but I'll run it up without the fan to start with. Just then it's not blowing everything everywhere when she fires. Now it's filling the radiator up. There we go. You have a lot of gurgling going on. See if we can backfill it through the engine there. I'm sure that will pump it through. What I'll do is put that down just a little bit. I have the keys. I have a 17mm spark for the injectors. Let's see if it'll do anything. We have oil pressure, and by the looks of things we have diesel coming through here. Oh god, that's made a nice mess everywhere, but that's good. Oil pressure was my biggest concern with it having had all that gunge in it, and we've got it. On the button. Yep, oil pressure light's gone out. Amazing. Good. That sounds mint as well, that sounds really good. Well, I'm happy to put that intercooler pipe back on now. Oh, I'm really pleased with that. That sounds good. Really, really good. Yeah. So that's the one for that one. This is the one for that one. Oh, I'm so pleased it's fired up. Have to mop some of that diesel up, come out the injectors there, but that's not too sad. Brake clean some of that off, I suppose. Right, let's fire her up again. That sounds sweet. It's just how a 300 should be. A little bit of belt squeal, but I think that's just where the water's leaked out the top here onto it. Sounds sweet. Just chuck the jet washer over the disco and giving it a quick bath with some car shampoo and the mop. It's cleaned up quite well. It's hanging on to a couple of days of MOT still, so I will get it booked in, get a test on it. Yeah, my dyno disco's back on the road.